just to tell you a little bit about myself, I was born here in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa. So that naturally makes me an Ethiopian. And I love this country, and given the choice, which I do have, I wouldn't live anywhere else but this country. There are many reasons why I say that. Ethiopia is not really endowed with natural resources. It's not endowed with diamonds or oil. Its biggest asset, what makes this country very special, are its people. Now, Ethiopians are warm, they're welcoming, they're generous, they're quick to smile, and they're very hospitable, perhaps excessively so. Yes, as you know, at restaurants, nobody ever wants to pay, yes? Everybody wants to pay, as opposed to nobody wants to pay. So what I want to do is I want to go through some of my personal experiences and posit to you some things that we could do better. We have a lot of good things, but maybe some things can be improved. Our country is turning a corner now. We are living history today. This moment in our country is going to be written in the history books. We are just about to turn a corner. We're just about to see a new dawn, a new day. So what can be done to make things go faster and better for us? Now, as a general disclaimer, I would like to indicate to you that I am absolutely apolitical, so please do not take anything out of context. I'm not pro or repudiating any ideology, neither am I pro or against any faith or religion. So whatever I say are my simple observations, or as Jerry Seinfeld would put it, these are shallow, fairly obvious observations that I've made, yes? But I think they're important and they need to be said. Now, before we go forward, before we start thinking forward, maybe it might be prudent to look back, to look at our past, a little bit of our history. And don't fret, I'm not going to spend the entire time talking about our 3,000 years of military victories and famines and long-gone emperors. What I want to do to you is posit to you or suggest to you how we view our history. How do we view our history? When an Ethiopian says it's history, it means that it is important, that it is relevant, that it is something to be proud of, something to be learned from, and something to be preserved. Now, this is not only our way of viewing at history, but a lot of other people around the world view history in the same way. But obviously there are another group of people who view history in a different way. When they say that's history, it means it's gone, it's unimportant, it's immaterial, it's why bother, forget about it, or it belongs in a museum. Not here today, okay? So the one thing that these two groups share in common is that history has to be preserved, and perhaps museums have a place in this. Now, we have a very, very proud history. We have a very proud history, and there is good reason to be proud of this history. But is it possible for us to be too proud? Can people be too proud about something, okay? Can we be excessively proud about our history or our culture or language? It is not, for example, uncommon. If you go to any of the restaurants or the cafes you find around Addis, and the waiter comes up to you, and what does he say? And I will say this both in Amharic and English, so that for the benefit of everybody, he will say "Milli zazilot" in Amharic, which is, what shall I order for you? Now there is a very subtle distinction. The waiter is not asking, may I take your order? The waiter is asking, what shall I order for you? So he will go back to the kitchen and order somebody else to do the job. That comes from pride. That comes from pride. Now, this admittedly will cause some problems, which means that we want to be taking orders. If at all possible, we would like to be the ones calling the shots. We preferably also will be making absolutely that we will be calling the final shots and everything. But maybe you've experienced this in your own workplaces where you've given instructions to an employee on how things should be done, and then later on found out that it was done differently. Then that person would probably tell you, well, I thought my way was better. Yes? So we have a little bit of a problem in terms of our pride getting in the way of some working relationships. This also may cause hiccups along the way, especially if we're hoping that our economy would be growing and most people, most working age people would be employed in the formal sector. They will be working in factories and offices. And believe it or not, in most places, there's always going to be somebody above your pay grade. There will always be somebody who's going to tell you what to do and what not to do, who'll be giving you orders, will be giving you instructions. This pride might get in the way of that. At the same time, we have a very rich history and culture of humility, humbleness, respect, deference for our elders, to our parents, and even to people in authority. I feel, or I believe, that there is a balance between the two extremes. I think we can strike a balance, an equilibrium, where we can be proud without the pride getting in our way. Now, our pride, as I said, is very well rooted, and we have, as I said, many reasons to be proud. But it also gets in the way of admitting mistakes. In the case of the waiter that I told you about earlier, if the person brought you the wrong order and you complained, he would probably tell you that it was not his fault, but it was the fault of the guy in the kitchen who bungled the job. It is not his fault. So admitting mistakes could also be a problem for us at times. Now, if we hope or if we plan to leap into industrialization and take this country further, then this pride may get in the way, or this reluctance to admit mistakes may get in the way of improving product quality, service quality, maintaining standards, and so forth. Now, as I said, it is because we're a proud nation, we are a proud nation, that we've not been colonized by foreign powers. We were not about to have somebody else come from abroad to our birthplace and tell us what to do. There was no way we were going to accept that. And that has served us well. We've been independent for many, many thousands of years. And that, coupled with the appetite for risk, has made our military ventures very formidable. Okay? Now, but I think our appetite for risk is perhaps a bit too far and also perhaps a bit misplaced. Now, we are daring people, and we take people who are reckless, wanton for risk with a certain degree of admiration. Now, I'm sure you have heard of the expression, "Dafar nachis mocha atam." Or another way of saying this would be, for the English-speaking people, the daring and smoke always find a way out. Which means that if you're daring enough, in the end, everything will turn out your way. So this has increased our risk our appetite for risk. Of course, this appetite for risk is good when you're going on military ventures, okay? When you're going to war, where, downplaying risk may come to your advantage, but obviously this doesn't work if you're a surgeon, if you're a truck driver, or if you're an aircraft mechanic. Obviously, you don't want to be taking risks. You want to be managing your risks. Of course, we can redirect this. We can redirect our appetite for risk to investments, or even better, we can anticipate them, calculate our risks, and manage our risks. Now, we even take risks on time. Time is one of the most valuable commodities around. It's something you cannot save, it's not something you can put in the bank, it's not something you can borrow from somebody, but we take risk with our time. We do. If you can have an appointment, if somebody gives us an appointment for 2 p.m. and we're across town, and we start going to that destination 3 minutes before the appointment, and obviously we'll find a lot of excessive reasons and excuses why that risk was warranted. Now, our concept of time may be different. And this, especially to foreigners, non-Ethiopians, may be a little strange, or maybe they might not understand it very well. So, and I see a few Ferengis nodding their heads there. So let me translate what we mean by time in Ethiopia. If, as an Ethiopian, I come to you and I say, let's meet at 2 o'clock, that means anywhere between 2:15 and 2:45. If I come to you and I say, let's meet at 2 o'clock exactly, or 2 o'clock sharp, that means anywhere between 2 o'clock and 2:15. So I hope this clears up a little bit of our concept on time. Now, we don't want to be rushed as well. We're very laid back. We don't want to be rushed or hasty. We want to do things at our own pace. We don't want things that are moving too fast for us. So, but when you come to our roads and our streets, you see that there are a lot of irritable, impatient drivers that just can't spare the time. Microsecond after the light turns green, they're honking on their horns, get out of the way, get out of the way. And they'll probably save a second or two. And they're probably rushing to an appointment they've been late to. Yes? But the thing is, they'll go to that appointment and spend probably an hour whiling away the time chatting over macchiato. Okay? So we like to think things very easy. So our understanding of time, our flexible perception of time, may lead us to many latecomers to meetings, and I won't mention today as an example. Also wedding lunches that are served sometime during dinner time, and a lot of aggravated Ferengis that are living in Addis and in Ethiopia. So a bit of the unnecessary risk-taking has also something to do with our fatalism, which means we feel like things are preordained, that we really don't have much say on how things turn out or how things play out. In other words, what will happen will happen. Yes? I mean, there's not much I can do about this. It's going to happen anyway. Yes? What can I contribute to this? How can I impact this? How can I change this? And I'm sure there are certain things that are best left, to the supreme beings living in the heavens, but there are also many things that are down to earth that we actually have an impact on, that we can contribute to, we can direct one way or the other, so that they are beneficial to our lives and our community and our country. Now, for example, there was a notion, maybe not today, but there was a notion that our leaders were somehow anointed by a supreme being. Yes? I'm glad to say that these days, people are more involved. They do go out and vote. But I think we still have ways to go in terms of believing that we have an impact on our destiny. Okay? And you also see people on the streets, yes, walking in the middle of the street with their backs to oncoming traffic. Yes? This is recklessly tempting fate. Yes, we will die someday, that's inevitable, but is it advisable for us to find out if today is the day? I don't think so. I think we can take certain control in our lives. We don't have to leave everything to fate. Now, moving on, a bit of taking the unnecessary risk has to do with it, as I said, with the designation of what will happen, and a sense of powerlessness to these unseen powers that have more power in our lives and directing our lives than ourselves. Now, the one thing that we've really come to grasp with is that we're not a very wealthy nation. And we're not very wealthy individually either. Okay? We've really come to grasp with that. And I think there is an awakening within us that we can do something to change our lot. That we don't have to live, we've lived for millennia. There are certain things we can do to direct ourselves, to improve our lives and those of our children. Some start small businesses, others, they go and pursue higher education, and still others, and I'm not saying this is unique to Ethiopia, there are other people in other parts of the world as well, they want to get rich very quickly, and most of the time these are very unseemly ways or illegal ways. And of notable mention here would be corruption. Now, in Amharic, we say, "Sishom yalberla, sishari kochwal." Yes? In the English translation, this would be, "One who does not eat," within quotes, "when promoted to authority will regret it when he is demoted." Yes? This is something that has permeated in us. If the corruption perception indices are to be believed, we're not really one of the very worst in terms of corruption. But I think still there are things that can be done to improve the conditions. Now, what I find really interesting is that even though this is a very religious society and corruption is illegal, we have euphemisms for corruption. It's euphemized. We say, like in the saying, eat. Yes? Work. Yes? Or else zagga, which means you close the business deal. Yes? We have euphemisms for them, which means we're not really fighting against it. We need to think our frame of thinking, we need to change our frame of thinking, and really abhor, or as I said, spurn corruption. Now, we've heard of amazing stories of corruption in this country, some really amazing stories. One being that the guy with the gold-plated lead that was sold as gold billions. Yes? Now, these stories have almost reached, legendary proportions. And when we hear these stories, at the back of our minds we're contemplating, at the recess of our minds we're contemplating how we could have done this better. Yes? How could we have improved on what the person did? Now, this takes me to my next topic of that being amazed. Now, we like being amazed. We equate amazement with amusement. Yes? Put a few guys together over coffee, quickly it will be an escalated war about whose story is more amazing than the next. So somebody says something about either a natural disaster or some political scandal, and the next person would tell you an even more amazing story. So this escalates, becomes a race about whose story is more amazing. And after a while, when nobody can forward any more amazing stories, the topic kind of fizzles out and goes to a new topic, where the new race escalates again. Now this is because we're somehow entrapped or enraptured hearing amazing stories. But I would rather, when we hear these kinds of stories, we shouldn't be amazed. Be sad, be angry, be happy, do anything but be amazed. Because if we're just amazed, the only thing we'll do is we'll take that story with us, and next time we find other friends who weren't at that discussion, we'll share all those amazing stories. If we're happy, if we're sad, if we are angry, if we react, we will do something about it. So let's skip over the amazement and go towards reacting to information that we get. And this may also have to do with something with our sense of humor, that most of our sense of humor is borders on the absurd and the amusing, or the amazing. So this also is perhaps also something that we can look at. Now, there are things that foreigners find amazing about this country. Or another way of putting it is maybe they find it inexplicable. They can't really put their finger on it. They really can't put their finger on it. And one of them is communications. We Ethiopians have our own mode of communication. We understand each other, but people who come from outside, probably not so well. And let me give you, for the benefit of some of the few Ferengis that are here, let me give you some of the translations. When an Ethiopian says yes, it may mean maybe, or it may mean no. Sometimes it may even mean no. When an Ethiopian says no problem, it means I have no clue, but I'll give it a shot. When an Ethiopian says of course, he means I don't understand, but I'll figure it out eventually. Yes? And the most confusing of them all is when somebody says yes, no. Now in Amharic, it's very, very common. We say oh, yeah? That is the most confusing. Now when somebody responds oh, or yes, no, the best thing to do would be to listen to the end of the story and figure out whether that is a yes, a no, or a maybe. Okay? But this ambiguity in our communication style is a reflection of how many shades of gray we have between yes and no. That we can walk the whole spectrum. That we are more relativistic than relying on absolutism. We think in more relation of other things than absolute terms. Now this may have its benefits, but it may also have untold consternations, especially for Ferengis or foreigners that come to this country, but also even amongst ourselves. Because it does take a while for this dust to settle and to finally figure out whether this is a yes, a no, or a maybe. So that will eat up into our time. Now, for the sake of turning a corner, I think we could cut down on this ambiguity a bit. I think we can bring in a bit of clarity into our communication. In line with this, I would also I think it's worthwhile to mention some other aspects about our communication. A person whose manner of speech is peppered with a lot of, we think this person is full of thoughts. This person is actually a deep thinker, yes? But in other parts of the world, this person may be viewed as a person who doesn't really have his thoughts together. We put in so much stock in these pauses in between that some people who have absolutely nothing of substance to say actually pepper their words with these pauses to give the affectation they actually have something really knowledgeable to say. We can do without them. We can save time, we can add clarity, yes? And we can do away with the affectations. Now, The next topic I would like to cover on is about our fables or our stories. We Ethiopians have very oral culture. Yes? If something is written down, people say TEDxAddisAbabaUniversity, which means it is on paper. That takes it up a notch. Yes? Because most of the communication is done orally. Even in workplaces, instructions are given orally. Yes? Most of the information that flows, the number of newspapers circulating in the city is not a lot. But if one person has read that newspaper, trust me, 20 other people have heard about all the news that is in that newspaper. At least the amazing stories in that newspaper. Yes? Now, word of mouth plays a big role. And the stories recounted to us as children were also oral stories. Okay? Now, I think these stories that we heard growing up as children have left an indelible print or mark on us. Now, our fables are not about solving mysteries, unraveling riddles, or following clues. Our stories are usually about the lion, the monkey, yes, the donkey, and the hyena. And in most cases, it's the lion and the monkey that come out on top, and the donkey and the hyena are usually at the losing end. Yes? Now, while the donkey is depicted as a hardworking dimwit, the hyena is depicted as an insatiable glutton, yes? The lion is depicted as a ferocious, majestic animal, and the monkey is depicted as a cunning, yes, quick-witted animal. In these stories, it's always the lion or the monkey that is winning, and the hyena and the donkey are always losing. So the morale of the story, these stories that we heard growing up, is if you want to get what you want, you either have to be violent and intimidating like the lion, yes, powerful, or else you have to use your guile and trickery to get what you want. Now, when the monkey is pitted against the lion, who wins? The monkey wins in the stories because of its guile, its cunningness, yes? So the moral of these stories has somehow seeped into us without even us knowing it. It has been inculcated into our thinking. So quick-witted tricksters who risk it all in an amazing show of bravado to get quick rich are given a degree of respect and admiration. Because that is the moral of the stories that we've heard all our lives. But now the question is, so how do we turn a corner? And all these things that I've mentioned up thus far are not all bad. They're not all negative. We have a lot of good qualities as well. A lot of good qualities that we can build upon. But how do we turn a corner? This country is at a historical crossroads. Yes? We're trying to build a generation. We're trying to move this country from where it was to where it dreams, aspires, and hopes to be. So can we do things better without actually abandoning ourselves, without actually leaving our Ethiopianness behind? There are things we can carry. Are there things we can carry with us and things we can do better? And I think it is possible. And I don't mean emulating some, and I won't mention any countries, but any wealthy country where almost everything is too predictable and the spontaneity of life is dimmed. In Ethiopia, there is a lot of spontaneity, okay? We want to maintain that. We don't want to be a very mechanical, robotic kind of society. We want to maintain that rich social interaction, yes? We want to maintain all those good things. But obviously, we can do better without some of the things. So I posit that we find a middle ground. That we can say, for example, we can meet up with friends, yes? And chat over coffee, that's a good thing. It strengthens our social bonds. But let's get to the appointment on time, okay? We can calculate risks and manage them. We don't have to jump into something without knowing what to expect, yes? We can be astute and shrewd businessmen without, relying on trickery or guile or illegal activities. We can keep our faith strong and still plan for generations, not just our lives, but even for the lives of our children. We can be proud of who we are as individuals and as a people, and still be professional in the workplace. And finally, we need to tell new stories. We really need to tell our children new stories. And in these stories, teamwork, concern for others, and hard work should pay off. Thank you.